an African agenda that is based on our mandate as a generation. I've already said that the yester generation of Kwame Nkrumah, Samora Machel, Robert Mugabe, Nelson Mandela, they did their bit to set us on a course of liberation. Our duty now is to make sure that we unite the continent, uniting the continent on the platform of, number one, leadership. Being able to make leadership a core requirement, effective leadership, leadership that comes with a clear and articulate vision for where we want to take our African continent. And I would say that if we are to move our continent, we need to make sure that we set it on a course of transformation, transforming our institutions, transforming our structures, transforming our culture, especially the leadership culture, so that we respect the citizen, we respect communities, we respect the population and the people. Once we are able to do that, we would not have individuals who cling on to power, we would not have individuals who use state institutions and abuse them to kill innocent citizens. You can't be paid by taxpayers to kill them. You can't be paid by taxpayers to abuse them. You can't be paid by taxpayers to be a terrorist, terrorizing those people who are paying for your upkeep. You can't be a master to the people who are supposed to be your master. So that leadership culture is the first point we must be able to deal with. Number two, we must be able to then embrace in all aspects the ability of our continent to come together, build a narrative that is unified, a united continent, one visa African continent, a borderless African continent, revisiting the whole Berlin Conference, demarcation and boundaries. Do they serve the future we want to see? Why should we be sculpted and sculptured on the basis of what was done in Berlin in Germany? That conversation must kick in. Those boundaries, are they serving the purpose? Why have we been divided? There was no division between Zambia and Zimbabwe, except that Zambezi River was not for purposes of dividing us, but actually as a mutual source of our water purposes and other purposes. So we cannot go forward if we have not sat down to revise and scramble back the scramble for Africa that we've seen. And with it, we also have to begin to see the partnerships that we engage in as an African continent. Are we not just in that situation where we are changing the rider without really changing the ride, so that we are winners? It's a win-win partnership between ourselves and those who would want to partner with our continent. Issues of beneficiation, issues of disruptive technologies being embraced, issues of making sure that the fourth industrial revolution is also embraced, which takes me to the third point. Issues around making sure that Africa is creating a platform for the future as a source of solutions to global problems, and not just a recipient or a consumer of the challenges we have. Last but not least, it is my view that we cannot go anywhere until and unless we have fixed two fundamental things: infrastructure and the culture of entrepreneurship. So going forward, we need to invest quite significantly in infrastructure. Look at all the other continents, all the other serious countries. They have their own media institutions to articulate and propagate their important and fundamental narratives. But the African continent does not have a unified voice. We are even divided on language. All those things need to be deliberated upon. I could go on, but I just thought I needed to highlight the broad parameters of what we need to do as we speak to the new Africa I want to see. I would say that the most important aspect for consideration as we go forward is to develop our own internal strong institutions, as I have indicated, because what we do not want is a situation whereby standards are being set by others when we can't set standards for ourselves. That's the first point. So I would say that as the African countries, as the African continent, we need to be able to go to the international community with our own checklist and our own templates of our own standards, so that the standards are not imposed, The standards are not foreign. The standards are actually built and coming from our own proud consideration of what we consider to be the dignity of an African, the dignity of an African citizen, but also the integrity of an African leader. So that whatever we are doing, we are engaging on the basis of standards. We are engaging on the basis of rules that we have sort of adopted. That is the first point. So we do not have the Chinese, the European Union, the United States of America coming to tell us on what to do, but we should actually be saying these are our standards, and our standards are actually global standards. So a conversation has to be a conversation of standards on the basis of our own standards as an African continent. And for us to be able to do that, we must strengthen our own institutions, our regional blocs, but also even our continental institutions, so that we are able to have a voice that is institutionalized, but not only a voice that is institutionalized, but a voice that captures the majority of our people, because our bodies, especially SADC and other bodies, are becoming a trade union of the elite, of the leaders, or a club of dictators in some cases, instead of them being a club of the citizens of a particular region or the citizens of a continent in their conversations, in their aspirations, in their expectations, in what they want to see as a people. So that's my first point. The second point is obviously the issue of trade, the issue of partnership, the issue of investment. We have to create standards around issues of a conversation between those who would want to be partners of the African continent, so that we do not become both a dumping ground, but also a source of parasitic tendencies of certain of the giants across the globe, where Africa is reduced to being a ground for acquisition, a ground for exploitation, a ground for just manipulation by big powers. Right now, as we speak, there's a lot of mortgaging of mineral resources, of our important and valuable resources for a song by most of the elites in governments, in the various leadership. And we need to reverse this, because we see the exploitation. A case in point is in Zimbabwe here. Mutoko, there where people are being exploited, they are being chased away from their traditional homes and places for no compensation, no conversation, something that is just being done, by imposition from the top down without involvement of those communities. So we need to begin to say, what is a win-win, solution or mechanism between local citizens, local Africans, and those who want to do business with us, so that we are not just there as the ones to be ridden, but we are also taking a ride together with our partners in a win-win situation. The Constitution is very clear about the rights that are given to citizens, and we are bound and guided by the Constitution, because that is the supreme document that governs a country and the population. So in terms of the rights that are given, you are aware that marriage is prohibited in the context, same-sex marriage is prohibited in the context of our Constitution. And that is what guides us. We will respect the Constitution on these aspects, and we will respect the rights of citizens as enshrined in the fundamental law of the land. On the issue of the question of poverty, again, I spoke to the issue of commitment, service, and sacrifice. All dictatorships thrive on the appetite and greedy of the oppressed and the vulnerabilities of those who are active in politics. So yes, we have seen a rise in people, being invited to the feeding trough, because opportunities are narrowing and most of the people are then invited to be part of the grave train. But this is where principled leadership works. This is where conviction kicks in. And we have been building our cadreship around conviction, to say our duty is to be motivated by the missionary zeal, not the mercenary zeal. So that what we are at the end of the day is not on the basis of what we want to take unto ourselves, but what we want to give, what we are giving to the nation, what we are giving to society. So that has been a big fight. Yes, you always have in a struggle those who get tired, who get exhausted, and those who decide to pitch camp with the oppressor. But that is just to remind us that is a struggle, and that is why it is a struggle. We continue to encourage the rank and file of the citizens and Zimbabweans to remain steadfast, to remain committed in terms of this fight against oppression and dictatorship in Zimbabwe. Yes, it's a very difficult one because people always get visited with this Last Supper temptation that, no, let me just eat for the last time. Perhaps this is the end of it all. But I'm glad to say the majority of the people in the organization and institution I lead are very principled people who continue to maintain their integrity, who continue to be principled against all odds and against very difficult circumstances. Now, of course, the issue of money, I'm sure Musi will be able to deal with that because it was specifically in the context of South Africa, but also in our own context. You know, money continues to be a big problem. Big funders always come in to try and manipulate the ordinary citizens. And this is where the issue of voter education comes in. This is the issue of grassroots and organic connection with the people. Because people have to understand that each time you are given a bait, you must know that you are up as the next, on the diet, on the diet of the one who is giving you that money. So it's very important for citizens to understand that what then serves us is that conscientization, that education, that ability to rise above. But of course, you have cases where you have big money trying to also influence our politics on the ground. It's a big issue we must be dealing with. Yes, the ideal answer would be to make sure that some kind of foreign funding is understood in the context of political parties' finance that is given to all the players. But then again, because of our circumstances, Africa is always a very difficult issue. So a conversation has to be continued in that respect. Because what we represent is the new. What we stand for is the alternative. What we stand for is the punctuation of what we've been fighting for. The liberation of our continent and, of course, the transformation of our continent. Now, our best bet is to continue to listen to you as fellow Africans, to listen to you fellow Zimbabweans. We believe that we lead by listening. When we lead better when we are listening better. We listen to understand your concerns. We are listeners, and we know that by listening, we win. And when we win, we all have that sweet victory for all of us. And I must say that we are so emboldened. We are unshakable. We know that the majority of the people of Zimbabwe are with us. What we have to do is to provide a dignified leadership that is based on certain sets of values so that we are able to provide that alternative. We do not want change without change. We want change that is anchored on fundamental root and branch transformation of culture in terms of how we do things. We must really be different so that we do not just ask for a replacement of the old with the new that is the old. We want fundamental root and branch reform, transformation in governance, in terms of our governance culture, transformation in terms of the governance structure. We must be in government to save, not to be served. We must be in government to give, not to take. We must be in government to make a difference and live, not to go there and be different in a very negative way. So that is our pledge to the people of Zimbabwe. We are retooling, we are reorganizing. We understand that we have been affected by what Mr. Mnangagwa has been doing. But thank God, Mr. Mnangagwa has done a fantastic thing for us. He has managed to reorganize us by taking away from us the bad elements and the bad apples. And our basket of good apples is sure to provide that hope to the people of Zimbabwe. And young people, I know you can do it. Let's go out there, register to vote. But not just register to vote, but also to engage meaningfully in the discourses of the day around bread and butter issues, around moving our nation from poverty to prosperity, That move to prosperity is your move. You are the movers and shakers. You are the game changers. Ndimuneyesi. Tamba ibora racho. Mupedzere vanhu vamasports. That's what we need to do. And the game is on. The A game is coming. And change is coming to Zimbabwe. The Federation of Democracy is consolidating. We started with Malawi. It went to Zambia. It will come to Zimbabwe. I can feel it. The sweet smell is just coming through. It would then also engulf the entire of the Southern Africa, South Africa included. And happiness and joy for the people of our continent is going to be our portion. It is certain that victory shall come and be our time. And I want to thank all those who have been listening. I've just been told by my team that this has probably been the largest, space audience on the African continent to date. And I thank all of you. My brother Musi, let's do it for our continent, for our generation, and for our nations. History will record our effort. We are not in here to fail, but to succeed. We will do our bit, and of course, together, we will do our best for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you.